the CBOC. So that, I think that's sort of a generic comment that applies to a lot of our work. There's opportunities in the future, and this is what something I would recommend that, and it relates to the items in the performance audit. If there are issues where you really value what the Bond Oversight Committee has to say, then let staff talk to the committee first before it goes to you and see, maybe we have a decent idea to come forward rather than reacting to a situation. With that said, I want to say some positive things, and I'll be honest with you, I felt, given the budget of this item, that we wouldn't get quite as a hard-hitting audit as this was, and it was a relatively hard-hitting audit. A couple of issues that were of concern, however, to the committee. One was that there was a significant number, significant number of invoices that did not have all the signature approvals.
If you can rotate that one now. It should pick it up for the tape, right?
Oh, it should? Okay. There was a significant number of invoices that were for payment. Over 50% of the payments last year did not have all the required signatures or approval pursuant to internal policy. And that, to me, and to the committee, indicates that there were some internal control issues with respect to communication between the divisions that needs to be tightened up. And
Well, in all fairness, Mr. Calhoun, can you respond to that? Because I think most of them have.
Sure, Mr. Carmel, and I can certainly say that most of those, if not all of the ones that were missing signatures, the signature that were missing was the SGI signature, because SGI no longer worked with the district. They were using the old form because SGI was suspended in January. So anything from January, when SGI was suspended from work, through the end of the fiscal year in June 30th of 2012, had the blank space where the SGI person did not have a signature, because that was signed by a district project manager and the project program director, Mr. Woods.
Mr. Murphy.
Well, I don't have the physical document in front of me, but I believe there were some invoices and so on that were approved. The audit found that post-SGI that did not have all the required signatures. I think the point, and this came up in the performance audit, I know we're hurting for time, is that the internal control issues need to be tightened up still, I think, is what I'm reading the audit. Dr. Alt, I've met with and will meet periodically. That seems to be going in the right direction. Just quickly, the other issue, one of the other issues was that we wanted 3 projects to review in detail. The IPADs, we told them, the consultant would sure like to have the IPAD process looked at in detail. It was not. There was also the approval of reimbursables for the consultants needed to be tightened up. Now hopefully that'll be done, because SGI, I actually went through some of the invoices with SGI, pre-Calhoun. I got to tell you, make your head, make you really mad looking at some of the things they got approved in reimbursables for the SGI. Water coolers and stuff like that, the charges to taxpayers. Transparency, and this is probably, I'll close on this because of again, in the interest of time. The last 2 performance audits said that you need to have better, I'll use my terms, care and feeding of the Bond Oversight Committee. And if anything, as chair, I've been here this almost a year, it seems like 10 years. Okay? I feel like I got a bipolar personality now. I never used to be this way. Is that you need to really kind of, I would recommend, just as a volunteer citizen, stepping back and say, how can we better interact with this Bond Oversight Committee? What I would do, first of all, is a committee process, get that tightened up, be more open, don't just eliminate the controversial aspect about the selection, number 1. Number 2 is on the information flow of things. Give Tom Calhoun the authority, under his discretion as an executive, there's things he probably ought to share with this committee in advance of going to your board, just for the mere fact that when we feel involved, you'll create less problems for yourself, rather than like you're trying to pull a fast one by docking the board on that is directly under our purview. that wasn't even shared with us. That was something you can control, and you can tell him to do that, and just you eliminate problems. And when you eliminate problems, you get less controversy, the meetings will go quicker, and this is kind of, not just apply to this, bond oversight, but everything. And finally, I think that the issue of change orders and lease back, and the whole construction process, I think we need as a committee, and it came through in this relates directly to the audit, that we need to be more involved in looking at the pros and cons of lease back, design build contracting process, so we can report to the public whether it's a good or bad process. We want to be, and this is my closing, I think the committee, in a sense, is kind of speaking, we really want to cooperate with you, but you have to tell the person, the executive, find a better way. Don't throw, you're acting on several letters or things like that. Let us do our job and try to help us rather than act as an impediment to us, because we really do. These are really bright individuals, all different personalities, all wanting to do the right thing. It's up to you to say, yeah, we can do better, and just let us do it. And that's, I don't know if there's any other, Kevin?
Yeah, just quickly. John, I'm very pleased to hear you say that the board should be more active in the decisions about the bond oversight committee. In my view, you have abrogated almost all of your responsibilities to your superintendent. When I came last year and asked for a relatively small budget so that we could get some outside advice, Dr. Brand's response was, "No, can't afford it." My response to that was, "You're the hired hand, you don't get to say. This is up to the board." And his response to me was, quoting you what you guys, where you had delegated all responsibility over this. This is going to get you in trouble. This is the one thing that relates to us, that you're responsible to choose your membership, and you shouldn't delegate that very far back. And that has been a point of contention for some while, unnecessarily so. So, I mean, he's trying to insulate you from the slings and arrows, and all it does is push us to bigger slings and bigger arrows. So take a little more responsibility, a little more interest in this, and maybe you handle this, because the education code allows you to delegate some of it, but I think it's really meant the administrative side and the staff responses. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And then Mr. Clapper after Mr. McCann. Well, okay, Mr. Butler. Go ahead, Mr. McCann.
And I appreciate your comments, and that was the reason why I proposed prior this process, is because I agree with you. We shouldn't be advocating the selection process. We need to be involved. We were elected, and we should be. I just wanted to take a moment. I know everybody's all come on the board and the bond oversight at different times. But ultimately, one of the selections that we did was we brought in Tom Calhoun. I think, and I've only heard positive things, but I think we were listening to the bond oversight on getting information, on making sure that the process was more fluid. And essentially, I think one of the most important things is the person who deals with you directly. And so that's why we brought on Tom. And I just wanted to personally thank him and publicly thank him for his job, because I think ultimately he has been a large improvement to the bond program.
Mr. Butler and then Mr. Clapper.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Before we close, I wanted to again emphasize we would really like to do workshops with the board where we can sit down and go over things, but I wanted to compliment Tom and Paul. Your entire staff has been, I mean, I've been on this and I've seen a marked change in the way this committee works and the information we go over and everything. And I wanted to compliment Dr. Alt, a tremendous asset. He's really been open with us, transparent. It's great. We're moving in the right direction if we can. But I also wanted to openly thank the members of the public who attend all of our meetings and brings forward items to us for us to discuss, because we can't always be aware of all those things. And you have some very concerned members of the public who are an asset to this community and everything. And thank God you have a few to bring some of these issues forward. So I wanted to compliment and thank them before we wrap this up. Thank you.
So the blogs aren't 100% right then? Dr. O was a good find. Good.
I believe so. Well, yeah, point of information,
Yes.
I think so too. I think both, all of the people that we work with on staff, you know, that I've worked with since I've been on this committee have been just fabulous. Sure, I mean, they have their marching orders from the people who they work for, but they've still been wonderfully helpful and supportive of what we're trying to do.
I can't tell you, Dr. Alt is like,
Both of them.
I mean, he has been really super.
Mr. Clapper. And then we do need to move to closed session.
Good afternoon,
Yeah, 3
Board,
minutes. Yes.
Dr. Brandt. As you know, I am an active member of National City and was asked by the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Brandt, but the way it went was the meeting said that Dr. Brandt had called her and wrote a letter and said that they were looking for a representative to apply for the bond oversight. So we had a director's meeting, they said, Mr. Clapper, would you be willing to do that? So they appointed me. So I applied, walked the walk, went through the steps, did the interview, turned in all the applications. This was the second time. I never heard from him the first time. Then this time, so I went to the interview. I thought I did very well, and then received a phone call from Dr. Brand to come and visit with him. When I went to visit with him, I thought that interview went very well too. And then I came to find out I was not even chosen. So I came to the board meeting. I drove all the way down here twice to 2 different meetings, one with the interview committee and one with Dr. Brand, 2 respective days. My name was never brought up. I was just, you know, it just went on. So, coming to the board meeting, I eventually went back to the chamber, and Jacqueline Reynoso asked me, she said, how'd you do? I said, I didn't do very good because I didn't even get appointed or asked or nothing. Dr. Brand decided that I was not going forward. So the other day, I was at a chamber meeting again, and Jacqueline Reynoso, she said, so Brian, I found out why you weren't selected. 1, they don't want nobody from the school board, Dr. Brand said. 2, they want a woman. Now I came to all these interviews, all these board meetings, and we were told, she told me that Dr. Brand told her that you folks, the elected officials, decided that you either wanted a woman and not an elected official. Now, you know, this to me, guys, you know, please, because my record speaks for itself. I work very hard. I run the 4th of July Carnival in National City. We 50,000 people. I'm president of the Lions Club. Read my application. Now, when a volunteer comes forward to me and asks me to help, I try to find them a job. Whether they're a female, an elected official, unless it breaks the law, we need to take advantage. And God forbid, I come from the city of National City, where the last time, I don't know if any of you guys were on the board then, but we have 2 gyms at Sweetwater. So the big joke in the public is, which gym do you want to play in? And this is something that I think I can help as a bond oversight person. I can help make these decisions. And I can work for the children. I have a daughter that's a senior that will graduate this year. I'm a graduate. I'm a lifetime member of National City. And I come before you to try to be a volunteer and a member of this bond oversight because I want it. But I'm beginning to wonder who's running this district. Is it you elected officials? As a board member of the National School District, my first lesson was that you run the district, not the superintendent. You have 1 employee. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we're going to adjourn to closed session.
Were you going to have speakers before you go to closed session?